All right, so it says I'm live, but let's make sure that I'm up on the screen and everything. Make sure that's all going all right before I really get started. And come on, where are we? There we go. All right, so yep, looks like we're good to go. All right, so today I have to open up for you from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon collection, the 2000X version of Clawful. This is the second of three Clawful figures that I'm going to be opening up this week. Yesterday, on the last episode, in case you missed it, I opened up the regular Origins version of Clawful based on the original figure. And it was, maybe a little over a year ago at this point that I'd opened up the Filmation version of Clawful from the Filmation cartoon collection. And I've got the Masterverse version of Clawful to open up on the next episode. So I thought it would be fun to compare and contrast these various versions of this character, which are all kind of vastly different from each other. Like there's always little differences in between the original toy and the Filmation version and the 2000X version. They all have their little variants, but Clawful to me seems like he's the one that just has the most vast differences between the original toy and the Filmation design and the 2000X design. I mean, we talked about this on the last episode, how these two versions of Clawful just almost look entirely different. You can definitely see there are some things that they have in common, but they've probably got more that separates them, that unites them as far as that goes. And this guy here, he goes off in a completely third direction. And in some ways, he is a little more accurate to the toy version, but in some ways, he just does other things that are completely different. First of all, I should probably say that the 2000X line was not beholden to sticking to that same standard buck like the original Masters of the Universe line was. Like, for example, Clawful, like I pointed out, he used the same arms and the same legs as Buzz-Off. Some versions had the same legs as Skeletor, but this version, obviously, it's the Buzz-Off legs. And I don't even know if they did the Skeletor legs version in Origins. I haven't seen it anyway. But underneath this breastplate, he's got the same torso as He-Man. He's got the same trunks as He-Man. Basically, they all kind of fit that same standard buck. They might have different arms and different legs, but usually it's the same chest, unless it's the Beast Man chest, and almost always the same trunks too. So that's most Masters of the Universe figures. Now, obviously, some, like say Cobra Khan, has a different torso, and later on in the line they'd have a lot more characters that had all original parts. But at least for the first 3 waves or so, they all kind of use that same sort of He-Man form factor. 2000X did not do that at all. If it was using the standard He-Man body, it was probably because it was another He-Man repaint. If it was using the standard Skeletor body, it's probably because it was a Skeletor repaint. Like Merman in the original line from the neck down was the same mold as Skeletor. Not so in 2000X. So they were not as beholden to making all the characters the same size necessarily as they were with the original line. So I think, when they did Faker, he was a repaint of He-Man, and when they did Mossman, he was a repaint of Beastman, just like in the original line. We'll talk more about Mossman in a future episode, trust me. But yeah, this version of Clawful, it looks to me like I don't know if it's all original parts necessarily. He probably shares some parts with Beastman, I think, is my suspicion. We'll find out when we open up Beastman. But if they'd have made Clawful in the original 2000X line, it would have been like an entirely new action figure. It would not have been sharing any parts, I believe, with any of the other characters. So with that having said, let's have a look at the packaging. Jose Membrane is here and says Claw Action. Yes, indeed. Bobby Wald says, I wish they would have used Merman's original name, Seaman. I don't. All the jokes I could have gone for years and years and years. Well, the good news is since they had that as his prototype name, you can still make the jokes. So that's good. Honestly, Clawful would have been just as much of a seaman. You know, he comes from the ocean, and there's a nice picture of him on the shore. Get a closer look at that. I talked yesterday about how Clawful kind of makes me think of a lobster, but he could just as easily be a crab. I think this version is much more crab-like than lobster-like. So let's go ahead and open him up. Where did I leave my X-Acto knife this time? Because I'm going to want to cut this tape. I got just piles and piles of stuff here. There it is. Okay. I could have sworn I just had it too. So here we go. We'll cut this tape over here on the side. And it looks like that might be the only piece of tape. It says, as seen on the island. You see Clawful standing up at the top here, menacingly over our heroes. Got Man-at-Arms, Tila, He-Man, and Decker. I wonder if I'm going to make a figure of Decker. I was thinking maybe that I'd had all of the 2000X cartoon collection figures at this point, at least the ones they've released so far. But then I remembered I don't have Ram Man. So maybe I should get Ram Man. I don't know. Let's go ahead and open him up. Get all of this out of here. And what do we have here? It's a card. It's a nice thick card of the type that we often see with these the deluxe figures rather than a comic book. And then we got this little sheet which tells us how the figure comes apart. It says removable parts. But I don't know how interactive he's going to be with other Masters of the Universe figures, because like I said, this dude is freaking huge. And Beastman is freaking huge, so I think he might share some parts with Beastman, but I don't know. We're going to find out when we get to Beastman, which will be probably sometime in the near future. There's the picture of Clawful again. You can see, like, if you look at his shoulders there, he's more crab-like in this one. I think it's kind of, to me, this one almost looks, if I was leaning towards crab or lobster, I would probably lean more towards lobster, because that's definitely a lobster-looking claw. I've eaten enough lobster claws to know what they look like. But this guy definitely looks more like a crab. I've eaten enough stuffed crab to know what that looks like. So, yeah. It says Clawful. Here's what the back looks like, by the way. Castle Grayskull on there. And it says Clawful, warrior with the grip of evil. I'm sorry. With the click of a claw, Clawful's underwater brethren unleash an evil plan to kidnap Man-at-Arms when visiting his friend and mentor Decker on Orcas Island. I wonder if Orko's ever been to Orcas Island. Anyway, he has no accessories whatsoever, which is disappointing. I don't know if he used his mace on the cartoon series, but the 2000X Staction figure came with his mace, and if the actual figure had been released for 2000X, I'm pretty confident he would have come with a mace if that's the case. He would have come with a mace if that's the case. But no mace for this guy. Let's go ahead and get him out of the package. And then I want to go ahead and put this back in the package, hopefully, before I can lose any of the little rubber tabs. I got enough little rubber tabs floating around this place as it is. Close that back up. We can toss that in the recycling later. For now, I'm putting it over there, out of my way. And Jose Membrane mentioned claw action earlier. Well, this dude certainly has a massive claw. Like I said, look at him next to a regular Masters Universe Origins figure, and you can see how much bigger he is. Very, very tall, very wide. This is a massive action figure right here. And okay, so check this out. Remember the original Clawful had blue boots, clawed feet, whatever you want to call them. They're blue. Okay. And I'd mentioned when I was talking about the Filmation version, how for whatever reason they decided to give them orange boots, and I wasn't sure what the reasoning was behind that. Maybe they just thought orange looked better. Maybe they didn't know what color his boots were going to be on the figure. I kind of suspect that they did not have the best of reference material for this figure, and that's what for this design of the character, and that's why I think he looks a lot different from the figure. That's one of the reasons I think why anyway. And then this version of Clawful has no boots whatsoever. He's got like some kind of gray bands around his ankles, and then he's just got these red crustacean feet, which are pretty much the same color as his claws. So he's got like different shades of red on him. So I'm guessing that this is supposed to be like his actual feet with no boots whatsoever. So while this guy has kind of three-toed orange boots, and this guy has kind of like blue insectoid buzz-off feet, this guy's just, got red feet. So it's like, you see there's no consistency here with like the with that's kind of what I'm talking about. All three of these are going to be totally different. Like with Merman, the original toy had kind of the Skeletor arms all in green, and then the Skeletor legs all in green. So he did not have the yellow gloves or boots that most versions of Merman have. But it seems like between like the 2000X and the classics and the either they're in the Origins versions, either they're going to go back to that green feet and hands, or they're going to go with yellow feet and hands, and it's one or the other. It's not like they're going to randomly have like purple feet and hands or something like that. But we've got three completely different colors of feet for Clawful. And like I said, one of the things I liked about the Filmation design is they actually made them all red rather than having just like a red head and red claws, but the rest of them's tan. Like, always confused me as a kid. But this one he's all red, but he's like two different shades of red now. And you can see that his breastplate is more similar to the vintage version, where it's kind of this crustacean-looking breastplate, and he's got this kind of V motif going on the front here with like these little V shapes. But then he's got these kind of pointy kind of shoulder pieces here. Like I said, to me he looks more like a crab than a lobster, and the old one to me looks more like a lobster than a crab. Bobby Wald says, I'm guessing Clawful was modeled after a lobster because if you'd have been a crab, you would only be able to walk sideways in the cartoon. Well, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, and then you see his loincloth, he's got like one of these kind of gladiator kilts like Skeletor has, with like a kind of a fabric loincloth in the front. And like, there's some nice detail to it where like it's kind of torn a little bit, so that's nice. And then a gray belt with a little red dot on it. And of course, if we think back to the original figure, like I said, red furry trunks with a blue belt. And but this guy, he had the blue furry trunks, so he kind of throws back to Filmation a little bit with having the blue loincloth rather than a red loincloth. But again, this guy's like, he's all red. So, you know, and he does not have like like a spring-loaded claw like the original guy, but it is articulated, so you can get some. He can still grab stuff with it, so that's cool. And then this claw over here, the smaller claw on this one is also articulated, so that's nice. It doesn't move quite as much as the big claw, but you see it does have a little bit of movement there as far as the pincer goes. And the head sculpt on this guy, I think, is it is a little more similar to the original Clawful, where he's got kind of like the spikes on his nose, and he doesn't have as much detail on him, obviously, because this is a cartoon version. And I don't have the staction to compare. I've only seen pictures of it online, but I would guess that the Four Horsemen probably did sculpt in a lot more detail to this guy that didn't quite come across on the cartoon. But the main difference with this guy, and like obviously there's a lot of differences in the visual, although there's just as many similarities with this one and this one as there are with this one and this one, if we're being honest, because again, he's all red, he's got blue trunks, you know, it's there's no consistency with Clawful. We can see similarities, but they all three almost look like completely different characters, don't they? And personality wise, these guys are two completely different characters. Did you ever see that old episode of The Simpsons where there was a new show on television called Police Cops? This is the Max Power episode. And there's a character on the show named Homer Simpson who's just very cool and suave and intelligent and a ladies' man, and everybody just thinks he's like the coolest guy on earth. And the next day at work, everybody's like, "Oh, hey, look, there's Homer Simpson," because he's got the same name as this really cool character on TV. But then that was just the pilot, and when the show was picked up for series, they made him into like this big stupid idiot who was just clumsy and spaghettios, and then Homer hated having the same name as this character, so he changed his name to Max Power. Anyway, this is that original, the pilot version of Police Cops, and this is the series version of Police Cops, as far as that goes. Man, he is just like on the Filmation cartoon, he's like, as far as Skeletor's henchmen go, like I said, this is one of the reasons I like this version of Clawful an awful lot. He's actually pretty deviously intelligent, and you know, he's almost like the Starscream in that in a lot of ways. And you know, that was something that kind of I felt like set him apart. This guy is also set apart from Skeletor's other henchmen as far as his intelligence go. But in the completely opposite direction. He's a complete moron. Even as far as the Skeletor henchmen go, even among his fellow evil warriors, he's a bit of a doofus. So, and I like this version of Clawful too, but I do think it's kind of funny how like they just I don't know what the thought process was there. If they were just like, you know, like he's really smart on the Filmation cartoon, but let's do something different here. Or if they just hadn't seen the Filmation cartoon in a long time or didn't remember any episodes with Clawful on there and they just decided to make him stupid. And like I said, even on the back of the regular Origins package, you can see there it says Clawful's crushing brutality and cunning intellect. So yeah, he went from being like the smart, at least outside of Evil Lyn, the smartest of Skeletor's henchmen to the dumbest. Now, when I took him out of the package, he did come apart very easily at the middle here, and I'm almost wondering if that's because like his gladiator kilt is riding up kind of high. So I'm going to try to see if I can get it on him any easier this way. and it does seem like it goes on him a little easier. Underneath, he's got more standard sort of furry He-Man trunks, but they are like much larger because this figure is just bigger in general than than most Masters of the Universe figures. And his arms are just really freaking massive. And Beastman, like I said, he's got really big arms. So I'm going to be interested to compare and see what parts that he and Beastman share. I'm guessing that probably the legs, at least the thighs and the upper parts of the shin and the upper parts of his arms, and maybe even his torso underneath this breastplate are all going to be shared with Beastman, and probably the trunks too. But yeah, it doesn't seem like he wants to stay together very well in the middle, even with the gladiator kilt removed. And I want to, like I said, he's an Origins figure, so he's going to come apart everywhere. But I want to go ahead and take out off the breastplate because you can remove this breastplate. Now, unlike the original Clawful figure, where I was talking about how like I kind of felt like it was ambiguous as to whether or not this breastplate actually is supposed to be a part of the his anatomy, or if it's a separate breastplate that he's wearing. You know, like obviously it's removable, but it's removable because they wanted to reuse that He-Man chest. This one, I'm pretty sure that this is supposed to be like part of his anatomy, and it's only removable because they wanted to reuse this torso, which I'm pretty sure is the same torso that we'll see on Beastman when we get around to opening him up. But yeah, and he's got this neck that kind of hunches over like that. So even though technically this head should fit onto other Origins figures, I don't think it's going to fit very well just because of how his neck is situated. But just for fun, just so we can say we did, let's go ahead and see if how it works when we swap the heads with the vintage style Clawful. And honestly, that one I think actually sits on the head fairly well on this version. So if you wanted to do that for whatever reason, there you go. There's something you can do. But how well is the 2000X head gonna fit onto the standard Origins figure? Not as bad as I thought. He's still kind of looking up because of the way that the neck is situated, but it doesn't look as bad as I might have worried. What about when we put it on the Filmation figure? Because I want to say those necks are a little bit shorter. That might not work as well. There he is. He's definitely a little stumpy there. Let's go ahead and I'll put the breastplate back on him, and then we can put the Filmation head onto the 2000X body. He's just looking down. He's so ashamed. Oh, the indignity, having my intelligent mind put onto this buffoon of a body. Oh, what do those words mean? Duh. Oh man. So yeah, the 2000X version of Clawful, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I think we can all admit that, right? We're all on the same page as that. But that having been said, like I think most people would agree with me also when I say that the 2000X design of Clawful is the design of him is very impressive and looks very cool. And if one were to say that the 2000X design of Clawful was their favorite version of the character, I'd be hard pressed to argue with them. Like it's a really cool design. And if you know, like they made him into a total beast. Like you see that this guy's just monstrous. And I kind of feel like maybe that might be why. I have a suspicion that might be why they decided to make him into kind of a moron on the 2000X cartoon. Because maybe like this guy being a tank and being, you know, not a complete idiot, it just might have been a little too formidable of an opponent. And maybe they wanted their their version of Clawful to be like just a tad bit more, you know, evened out, I guess. So we'll go and put him back together now. But yeah, it is kind of funny how, like, you know, obviously there's going to be differences with Beastman because he's going to be huge too, but he still pretty much looks like Beastman. They just kind of made a bigger version of Beastman. And the 2000X figure of Beastman like had some coloring differences from the original, but they oddly enough they made the cartoon a little more colored like the original version of Beastman. So that'll be something else we'll discuss once we get around to that. But yeah, like I don't know, maybe it's because he was so different on the Filmation cartoon from how he appeared on the original toy that they felt like they had a little more wiggle room and could do whatever they wanted to do with Clawful. And they came up with like a really cool design, I think. But again, it's one that's just as different from the original figure as the Filmation one was from the original figure, and just as different from the Filmation figure. Yeah, they just did not hold back with this design. And I do really like this design. And when we get to opening up the Masterverse figure on the next episode, we're going to see that they use some elements from all three of these. So it's almost its own version. but yeah, let's go ahead and talk about his articulation some. And so Clawful can only look up about that far because, like I said, his neck's kind of sticking out of the front of the torso like that. He can look down about that far. The head rotates all the way around, but you see it kind of rotates around at an angle because, again, the way the neck is situated. So the arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders, but they're going to kind of bump into this breastplate a bit. And there, I just dropped his whole midsection. Like I said, doesn't seem to want to stay on very, very well. And then his arms can raise up to the sides about that far. He's got a single joint of articulation at the elbow that bends in about that far, and then that rotates all the way around, like so. And you see he's got the, like I said, I'm pretty sure these are going to be original forearms. It's just the upper part of the arms that I suspect we'll probably see again on Beastman. But he's got like the kind of spikes on there, I guess, to make him look more crustacean-like. But to me, they kind of remind me of Batman. And then the big claw only has an articulation right here. It doesn't rotate all the way around. But the smaller claw rotates all the way around. And then, like I said, that has a little bit of an articulation there. And he does rotate all the way around at the waist, which I'm going to have to put him back together because, like I said, this waist just isn't staying on very well. So, you know, it'll probably won't fall off if you just got him standing on your shelf. I wonder how well he'll stand up because he's got these tiny little feet and this whole big body. And he does seem like he stands on my desk fairly well. So that's nice. But the waist does rotate all the way around if you can get it to stay on. And then Clawful's legs can kick up about that far. He can do the splits, no problem. That's about how far that can go. And then he's got a single joint of articulation at the knee, which doesn't quite bend 90 degrees, but almost. That's almost 90 degrees. And then that rotates all the way around. And then Clawful has a boot cut. So it rotates all the way around where that gray band is, right at the top of that, right where that meets the upper part of the shin. And then Clawful's foot can point down about that far. Clawful's foot can point up about that far. And then that rotates all the way around. So this character, like I said, he's kind of a doofus on this show. And, you know, either that's going to work for you or it's not. But that having been said, I still prefer the characterization that Clawful had on the Filmation cartoon. I like him being like a bit of a schemer. I think that really works, and it sets him apart from, say, Beastman or, you know, Trapjaw or any of those other morons. That having been said, I think that these guys are so different in terms of their visual appearance and so different in terms of their personality that you could almost imagine them being two completely separate characters who aren't exactly mutually exclusive to each other. That Skeletor just happens to have two crustacean henchmen that are both named Clawful, but one of them's an idiot and one of them's like, kind of a schemer. We can have these guys both coexist in the same continuity. How about that? Really, old boy, you are such an embarrassment to the name of Clawful. Thanks, boss. Yeah. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Anyway, I think that's it for this episode. I did really enjoy talking about this guy, but I think that's about all I have left to say. I will say the sculpting is very good on him. The paint is very good on him. I should probably mention he's also got just like the pointy feet, the pointy teeth down at the bottom of the mouth. That's how they decided to do the pointy teeth on this guy. And of course, he's got pointy teeth at the top of his mouth, but his mouth is open. And but you can see the bottom teeth are definitely more prominent than the top teeth. And his mouth is closed. So you just see the teeth sticking out from the bottom of the mouth. Anyway, I like how this figure turned out. Glue them together and make it just like Too Bad, says Bobby Walt. Oh, would I really want to do that to poor old Filmation Clawful? Have him strapped to this guy for the rest of eternity. It's not a bad idea for a custom. I might take you up on that one of these days. but yeah, it's like why just have one Clawful when I can have two Clawfuls and have them both have to work together and But we still got one more Clawful to go because we have the Masterverse version of Clawful to open up. And if there's any way that a figure can split the difference between the two different versions of Clawful in the animation and the third one from the toy, man, that one's gonna try. So that's gonna be the next episode. And if you want to make sure you don't miss that next episode, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about the 2000X version of Clawful. And if you made it this far in the video, leave a comment down below and let me know what your preferred version of Clawful is. If you want him to just be like a complete moron, or if you like him to be kind of crafty and scheming and actually plotting to take over the leadership of the evil warriors from Skeletor. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, though, honestly. Like, Clawful can't be that smart if that's what he wants to do. I mean, like, he'd be better off just putting together his own team of evil warriors. I'll form my own team of evil warriors with blackjack and hookers. Like, that would... I don't know why I decided Clawful sounds like Michael York now. Because that's not what Lou Scheimer did when he did the voice of Clawful on the cartoon. But I can only do so many Lou Scheimer voices and have them not just all sound like Lou Scheimer. Lou Scheimer had a way of doing his own voice and still sounding like a completely different character. Like, he's basically doing the same voice as Clawful that he did as King Randor, but it still works somehow. And I'm not as skilled at doing Lou Scheimer's voice as Lou Scheimer was. That's probably the way it should be. But yeah, if you made it this far, leave a comment and let me know which characterization of Clawful that you prefer. I'd be interested in your opinion on the matter. So please weigh in. And next episode, don't want to miss it. It's going to be the Masterverse version of Clawful. So make sure you like and subscribe and all that fun YouTube stuff down below. YouTube likes it when I say like and subscribe, so I like to say like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I already told you to leave a comment, but I'll tell you again anyway. It couldn't hurt. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.